Welcome to the Mostly Legal Podcast, a podcast where we share the untold stories of the people who make law firms operate. I'm Rob Joyner, Chief Revenue Officer at Centerbase, and I'm really excited about today's guest because for the first time ever, we're going to take an inside look at not only what it takes to start a firm, but everything that goes into closing one down as well.
And I'm Amanda Copeless, the better half of this crazy show. I'm the Executive Director for Sheffield, Lohman & Wilson, a mid-sized law firm based out of Central Florida. Rob stole my excitement, but this week it's my turn to announce our guest, Kyle Wygand. Kyle is the Director of Operations at Rouse McDowell LPA, where he oversees management and budgeting for almost every aspect of the firm. He also has the distinction of being the president of the foundation of the Association of Legal Administrators. So let me tell you, you're in for a treat today, but before we get started, I want to thank our podcast sponsor, Centerbase, software built to power the growth of mid-sized law firms. Let's dive in. Thanks for joining us today.
I'm really happy to be here, and we will definitely show this millennial in our presence here what the 90s did.
You're already
Hell
taking
yeah.
shots. Here we go.
Here we go. Here we go.
All right, Kyle. So let's start out. Tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into legal.
I was told by my parents in third grade that I was going to be a lawyer, and I'm not sure how far back we go. I think I
That's
probably
okay.
filled out some tests or made a coloring book thing in kindergarten that alluded to the fact that I like to argue, and so I was supposed to be a lawyer. Fast forward a few years, I was in high school, and I said, I want to be an intern at a law firm. We in Cleveland have a strangely large amount of law firms and law firm headquarters, Jones Day, Thompson Hine, a lot of big ones. So I reached out to a bunch and got literally, I think, one response, no, and then 40 no replies. This is when you actually type the letters.
I was going to say, did you actually have to hand type letters and put them all in the little mail
on my
and
dad's
send
computer.
them on? Okay.
Yep. Licked the stamps probably before self-adhering stamps, and heard back nothing. So
great start to the story.
I was going to say, well, what a go-getter, though.
I
want to pause on this because it takes a lot of effort, way more than just emailing. We didn't have email.
No, you're right. You're right. So I think there were, there might have been one or two probably calls made or someone knows someone who knows someone. And lo and behold, Jones Day had a position in the mailroom where I could deliver the inter-office mail. They didn't trust me with the external mail. I wasn't a messenger, okay? It was the mail that had already made it in the building. I was allowed to pass it out to various floors.
There's only certain floors you were allowed to go.
I'm
picturing you from Big, like, Tom Hanks pushes around that little mail cart and then he just moves all the way to the top.
Yeah, we absolutely had a mail cart. Yeah, we totally had a mail cart. I'm sort of belaboring it to add a little levity to the story, but that is where I started. But fast forward, I worked at Jones Day pretty much on and off throughout my later high school years into college, where I went to Fordham in New York City. So I thought, well, why not reach out to the New York City office and see if one day a week or so I could work there. So I did in their marketing department, and then my senior year I worked as a project assistant. So I actually got a billing number and was billing clients and working on some litigation matters in the New York City office of Jones Day.
What was your undergrad in?
Early
what were you studying?
Political science and history.
Okay.
So
because you were still going to go to law school.
Yeah, nowhere to go but law school, Rob. Nowhere to go.
There's literally, you're either going to teach history.
Yeah, I was about to say be a teacher or go to law school.
Or so okay, but pause on this story real quick.
Yep.
You're a Cleveland boy, and you just went to New York City.
I did.
Were you lost?
My family was a little dismayed, but not really. It was a place we had gone a lot.
And so you lived in New York and then chose to voluntarily return to Cleveland.
Right. You're getting to that point. Right. So law school application process, shoot for the moon and maybe do something a little more practical. I am a Cleveland kid. I am a Northern Ohio, Lake Erie kid at heart. So I think I was a little burned out with New York, and I'm like, all right, I'll go back to school in Ohio for law school. I did that for a year, and then I realized that I really hated it.
You went to law school for a year.
I went to law school at University of Toledo.
All right.
Did okay. I think law school is anyone that goes to law school will tell you it's very different than a high school experience or a college liberal arts experience. It's very cut and dry, and I'm for you getting to know me and those that do know me know I'm not very cut and dry. So, 4 years living in New York City as a college person was incredible. It probably was actually not a bad move to move back home to.
I was like, can I get in on some of those stories? Because I feel like
Yep.
there's got to be some stuff in there that's not safe for podcasting, but probably are really good to hear.
Yeah. We can record that separately. Have a drink or two, and then maybe you guys can decide what
Maybe
or
not
what not
record
to
it.
share. Yeah, maybe not record it.
Yeah.
Also, the beauty of being a '90s kid that we don't have recordings of ourselves. We just have pictures and albums.
Oh, did you ever
Yeah.
go stand outside of TRL while you were living in New
Yes,
York?
twice.
Hey, I did. Hey, I did that,
I
Amanda.
went to Letterman. I was on Ricky Lake in the audience. Calm down. I wasn't. I wasn't actually like, is this the baby's daddy? I'm actually. I was in the audience
On Ricky Lake, I loved her.
on Ricky Lake.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, went to law school for a year in beautiful Toledo, Ohio. I actually am not being funny. I like Toledo. It's come a long way, and I have a little place in my heart for it. But it just wasn't for me. I did okay, and thought I would stick it out, but did a lot of soul searching. Frankly, I was dealing with coming out in the early 2000s, and I think it's a little different than coming out in 2022. So I came back to Cleveland, and Jones Day was gracious enough to let me pick up where I left off. And I, in a short amount of time, became a paralegal, billing my time and working on some pretty fun stuff. Bankruptcies of some pretty notorious names of things over the years, lots of mergers and acquisitions, and so I became a corporate paralegal.
How was your background as a corporate paralegal? How has that helped you do a better job managing staff and managing paralegals on a regular basis?
Yeah, good question. It definitely reminds you to think about both sides, right? It's easy to, when you become a manager, a director, and everything in between, to think about firm first, business first, etc. And I like to think that I bring it back around to the time where you were a timekeeper, where you were a staff person, where you're a professional that has certain knowledge, but you don't know everything that's going on at the firm. It really helps you remember why communication is important to every level of employee at the firm. I think that's a big thing. I'm actually reminded of that occasionally by a few of the paralegals here at work at the firm. They'll often say, we kind of get lost in the shuffle. We're not lawyers, we're not support staff, so we don't have like direct managers. So, you, as at least at my firm, as the director of operations, you're our guy. So you've got to keep us informed, got to look out for us. So it's definitely helped me understand the relationship that group of folks has with the law firm, and also that how important it is to keep everyone informed.
That's an interesting point. But since you have that background as a paralegal, are there other things that you've done to help keep them feeling like part of the team, the paralegal team, as part of the greater team?
I'd like to think so. Maybe we can get one of them on real quick and see if. I think that even, it sounds crazy, but even something as simple as, this attorney is leaving us for this in-house position. Let's transition their work. Let's make sure the client is being serviced properly. Let's make sure, XYZ. We obviously have these lists, Rob, of things that we do. Either we follow a list or we do it instinctually. But often, like a paralegal might not be on that list, and just checking to make sure that they're part of the team is really paramount. I mean, any good paralegal will tell you, please put me on a matter or a deal or a client relationship from the beginning. You don't have to bill my time, but I'd like to be here. I'd like to be paying attention. I'd like to be in the know. So that way, when you do need me, it's not a big bum rush, catch up,
Interesting.
bill my time for 10 hours, and then I sort of fall off. It's really a nice and professional way to treat someone. And this goes for associates too. Any associate will tell you that they want to be part of something from A to Z.
Well, I hear that too, not just from paralegals, but all matters like legal assistants who will say,
Yep.
well, if I'm not copying on every single email, then how can you expect me to really know the case? How can you expect me to get my hands into this and know and understand all the key players? And that's a really good point with paralegals because they are billable members of the team. And so reading an email could be a billable task for them. And so
Yeah.
there's a hesitation to send them a copy of an email that we don't want to have to bill the client for. But by doing that, you, as you're saying, are taking them out of the loop where they could have a value add, and that's really crucial. So that's a really good.
But Amanda, you know what I tell them, and any one of them, I hope you would ask, would say this. That's not your job. Your job is to not decide what's important, what's billable, what's not.
Right.
The attorney who is the billing attorney responsible for it should want that on. And yes, it will come through on a pre-bill, but guess what? You can just write it off. It's okay.
You know what, Kyle, if I had $1 for every single time I had told somebody, don't self-audit, just record the work you were doing,
Yep.
I could stop working full-time and go to my non-paid gig as a podcast host.
Oh, yeah.
And
So Kyle, I did an employee onboarding here at Centerbase, and part of that, or at least what I do for that, is talking about the structure of a law firm and talking about firm administrators, people in operations. And I talk about how becoming a firm administrator, there's not a clear path all the time, right? People come from different backgrounds. There are very few programs that teach you how to be one. So when you went from a paralegal to operations, what were those big curveballs or those big things that you had to learn on the job right as you got started?
What happens is your phone rings one day and it's late in 2009. I mean, like really late. And a former partner at your firm says, would you like to quit your job and start a law firm with us? And you say, can I call you back? And then they actually text you like 4 hours later and they're like, are you still thinking about it?
I wasn't kidding.
Yeah. And she said, we'll pay you and we'll somehow figure out for you to have health insurance, even if we have to pay for a couple of months for you to go to the doctor. I'm like, okay, I'll quit tomorrow. So
oh, that's nice.
yeah.
Wait, you really did that?
Yeah.
Wow.
To answer your question, Rob, because specifically you don't really, I mean, unless you have a business degree and you just sort of happen to become a paralegal through that, you don't generally, with a poli-sci degree and 6, 7, 8 years of experience as a paralegal, know how to run a law firm. It helps to have worked at one since you were 17 and know how it works and know how deals work. I think the corporate M&A background I had was really helpful. I did some real estate stuff. So that was sort of hands-on helpful, but you don't really know how to obtain malpractice insurance in 5 minutes for a group of lawyers. You don't know how to start a 401k plan from scratch, and that it requires all kinds of regulations and certain,
You're not just going to the bank with a blank check and be like, can I start a 401k now, please?
Oh, talk about checks, Amanda. I signed my own first check made out to myself.
Oh, yeah.
And so
good
the bank
quality
called.
control there.
Yeah, the bank called and was like, let's not do that anymore. So there was a lot of hands-on experience, Rob, but I was telling Amanda, you just make one goal a day. I mean, your
Yep.
list is long, but if you figured out how to get the contract signed for Westlaw and get that off your plate, you've scored.
I always make the joke, we've grown a lot too, and
Yeah.
some days you feel like you're falling. I just try to lean forward. and
Yeah.
fall in the right direction.
Yep. I mean, center base wasn't there when we were doing this in, I don't think, in 2009, but if it were, it would be one of the ones I would have talked to and leaned hard on. That's why we call our friends in this industry, we don't call you guys vendors. We call you business partners for a very distinct reason
We
too.
also don't call them friends if we can help it. So
I see. I see.
So
Ah,
Kyle, other than learning on
he
the
just blows right through me.
yeah,
Yeah,
I just ignore
he just
Amanda.
ignores
She
my
likes to
hit.
I
she
see.
likes to take these little jabs and make these little comments, but you know, going past Amanda, other than just learning on the fly as you are doing the job, did you use resources within the ALA, or what are other ways that you gained that knowledge as you went?
So at the firm I was at the time, I reached out to the former office regional director and I said, "This is what I'm doing." And she said, "What?" And I said, "Yeah, am I crazy?" And she goes, "Yeah, but so what?" She said, "Have you joined ALA yet?" And this was, I'm not kidding you, like 4 days into giving my notice, and I hadn't even started squatting in the conference room of the office of the firm that these partners were leaving. They didn't know about that. By the way, it's okay. We can talk about it now because they're no longer in business. But yeah, ALA became. I know this is so corny. Like I guess it might be corny to people outside of the industry, but it's such a huge part of our professional lives. It really is. There was a program at the time literally made for me and about 12 or 14 other people who got on planes and flew out to Denver at the time, and it was called ECLA,
Oh, yeah.
Essentials of,
Essential
the
competencies or
yeah,
something.
literally, oh my God, I think it was called the competencies. Like, this is just going to barely get you by, but please come to this and pay attention so you can become a competent law firm
Semi-competent.
administrator,
We'll
semi-competent law
teach
firm
you how to not
administrator.
lose your job.
Yep,
Yeah.
perfect. And I did it, and I learned a ton. I used that binder, that 4 or 5 inch binder, several times over the first year or two. But the network I built was fast and furious. Again, I was already in the industry, so it made it a little easier. But I would tell anyone getting into it, you absolutely have to join ALA, and you absolutely have to pay attention, whether that's at the chapter level. If you don't join a chapter, you have to be involved at the national level with the resources. It's it's so key to not losing your mind.
Well, you
Um,
sound like you also had a firm that supported that professional development, right? Because I guess they
instantly.
know coming in, we're hiring somebody who doesn't know how to sign up a health insurance plan or somebody
Yep.
who doesn't know how to sign a new copy or contract. And so they must have done that because they saw something in you, but knowing that they were going to have to invest in your professional development to learn all those things.
I've
Is
been
that something you
fortunate.
all ask for
Yeah,
when you guys are going to a new firm?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Robin, I don't know if everyone's done this the whole time, but I learned this from someone who changed firms years ago in the Cleveland market. She said, I made sure this was in my agreement.
Right.
It's
Mm.
in my offer letter that the firm will pay for my membership annually to National, to Cleveland, and one maybe once a year or once every other year to an annual conference or something like that. So yeah, it's become a negotiating piece for us. But it shouldn't be a hard sell if you can show the value of the membership, which isn't really that hard to do. But
Rob, I
some,
actually tell people that all the time when they're asking me questions about, it's we have a hard position and sometimes negotiating salary for us is difficult. I mean, it is for anybody, but I always tell them, when you're going to your firm and you're talking about salary or you're talking about bonuses, that's a great time to think about the intangible things, or I'm sorry, the unmonetary, or what's the word I'm looking for? Okay. It's a great
non-monetary.
it's a great time to talk, well, but it is monetary, right? So it's a good
Well,
time
true.
to talk about the stuff that can help your professional development, and
Right.
those are things like conference attendees and things like that, and it's a way for the firm to get you a benefit that's not straight to your paycheck, but there's a lot of reasons why you both might want that. And so I encourage administrators all the time that if they are trying to figure out how they can get their firm to support ALA that they previously didn't and they do now, to bring it up at that time. It's a really good
Sounds
time
like
to
a
do
great
it.
webinar.
Oh dear.
Uh-huh.
we have ALA has something called a justification toolkit that
Yes.
helps you justify both your membership and attending conference, and it's really helpful.
Imagine that, Rob. We have to have a toolkit so that we can justify to a room full of lawyers why it makes sense for us to be professionally developed. But I digress.
I get it. That's
I
tough.
digress.
So Kyle, you talked about it a little bit, but and I wasn't on the pre-recording, but I heard about, this firm you're talking about. You started it and got it up and running in 7 weeks. Could
Yeah.
you go into that more? Some of the first things you had to deal with, some of those obstacles.
The first thing I personally had to deal with. So again, remember this is 2009. We had to open our doors on January 1st of 2010. So we're barely post recession. I think if you would Google it, it's not really even post recession. It's, you want to start a law firm in 2009, and people were like, no. But we were like, we're like, yes. It was kind of interesting. We were in the same building as my former firm. Awkward elevator rides occasionally, more than occasionally, but only 2 floors up. And so I became a squatter in this sort of sad hand-me-down conference room with mauve swivel chairs, and that's where on a laptop that we just sort of rigged up to the Wi-Fi, and that's where I started. Now there were some things in place because a lot of the lawyers were coming from a firm in which they liked certain things, so they wanted to keep, right? So that's kind of a little easier. You have the relationships kind of, but then they had a lot of things they didn't like and wanted to start anew, and that's the beauty of being able to have your own name on the door.
So you have to start with things like setting up the bank account, getting the
The
software in
bank
place,
account, what a trip.
leases, the
We
401k that you guys mentioned, or maybe that comes later.
Who's
well
doing
here's
this job, Rob? Did you get a promotion that I didn't hear about? Or maybe a demotion?
I was about to say.
yeah, all of that stuff. So the bank account's a funny thing, right? You could write a 2 or 3 page letter to the bank, and it would say things like, here are our projected financials, and we swear we're going to make millions, and these are our clients, and 2 of them have written letters of recommendation for us. And you're like, oh shit, fingers crossed. And lo and behold, we got a line of credit, and then we needed to buy phone systems. Like, oh wow, the phone systems will make or break your career, at least at a law firm.
I just replaced our phone system, so
How'd
wish
you
me
do?
luck.
How'd you do?
So far, so good.
Okay.
But maybe let's check back in before this goes live. I might need to re-record the intro.
Your title?
I need to re-record the title. Former director.
So it's that kind of stuff. But and the littler things, you're bringing over a lot of files, and you're bringing over the good, but you're also bringing over the bad. So you're bringing over some bad habits. You've got to try to break people from saying, well, at Schlemiel and Schlemazel LLP, this is
Wait a
how
minute,
we.
Rob's not going to get that. Pull that
shit.
reference
I didn't.
back.
I didn't.
Well,
Keep going.
That's really good. Okay, how about this? At Center
Dewey,
Base,
Cheatham, and Howe.
yeah, Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe. At Center Base, not a law firm, LLC, you have people who are like, well, that's not how we did it. Well, we've been doing it for 17 years this way. Getting people out of those habits is tough. That sort of, I found to be a little bit harder than I can get through this list and do it pretty well from A to Z. It's dealing with the people a lot more, right? So as a paralegal, my bosses were lawyers, and I managed deals, and I managed closings, and I managed my relationship with my secretary, but I didn't have to deal with, I was the HR manager and the operations manager and the insurance risk manager and everything else. That was unique.
Yeah, I always
So
say
the
it's the hardest job. You have to keep the staff happy, the attorneys and partners happy, and the clients happy. And Amanda will tell you she'll start with a list of things at the beginning of the day and not get through a single one. Right, right, Amanda.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, it's funny because he was talking about needing to renew the Westlaw contract, and that's literally been sitting on my desk for, I don't
I
know,
know.
60-ish days now.
As soon
And
as
so
this goes live, you're gonna get all the calls.
no, I know. Oh, I know. I just need to do it. Like it's up in like
Yeah.
within 30 days, and I just need to do it, and I just haven't yet because yeah, things happen all of a sudden. And I can't, when I joined legal, I remember coming in this bright-eyed, bushy-tailed little young girl, and I didn't know what I didn't know. I can't imagine having come in and not knowing, like, not even knowing, not having any systems in place, right? We at least had, an accounting system and a time and billing system, and trust accounting was already established, and I could just pick up and learn those little pieces, but not having any of that background. So, Kyle, hats off to you, for going through that.
Well, thank you. And I say this. Not to be a horn tutor,
Go
Toot
ahead and
your own
toot your
horn.
horn.
Go
but
ahead.
Go
but you
ahead,
That's what
say,
toot it.
but what I
toot
no,
it.
but what I can say to that is that no one can take that away from me.
That's
So
true.
there's a lot
Yeah.
of unique experiences as as a person in legal management, and we've got every type of legal man. There's like 85, 8,800 members of ALA. No one has the same story, but it's kind of cool to be able to say, at least mine, just of starting that firm, that no one can take that away from me. I'm not sure I want to do it every couple of years or so. I may actually not ever want to do it again. But uh, those who are listening, and you might need a law firm administrator who you want to pay very handsomely to start a law firm for you from scratch. Amanda has my number. Hopefully, my partners are not listening.
Okay, but I think that everybody needs, in all fairness, needs to know that the law firm you started really only existed for 7 years before you ran it into the ground. Is that correct? Or
Yep, yep. It was a real shit show. Are we
Hopefully,
allowed to
people
say
kept
it?
listening before they reached out to you, Amanda.
Yeah, yeah. Cancel, cancel.
Cancel that
Um,
email. Pull that back.
I know you're just being adorable because that's you. In fact, we were in business from 2010, January of 2010, till the end of August of 2018, so just shy of 9 years. And in fact, we were acquired. We did not close. That was
All right.
just a joke. We were acquired by Browse McDowell, which is my current firm. And so the beauty of it is I've gotten to keep working with a really big percentage of the people who were at the firm at the time, at this new firm. Well, it's not really new anymore.
I mean, you've grown because you said that the firm that you started, there was 3 attorneys, and now you guys have 60? Is that what I heard you say?
We grew our firm from 11 at the time up to 23, and then over the 8-year period, and then we right-sized a little, and I can't remember the exact amount of attorneys we had when we joined Browse, but Browse was around 60 so odd attorneys in 3 offices. Now we are 83 attorneys in 5 offices. So
So
we
you're a pretty
added.
big deal, is what you're saying.
I'm a medium to big deal.
Kyle, how was it to be acquired? Right, being on the other end.
That's another unique thing, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. How was that experience? Did you have a lot of fears going into it that you were going to be redundant?
Yeah, definitely. You could tell me, you could give me all the assurances in the world that I wouldn't be, which was the case. But funny, funny what you learn from people who you become very close with at your new firm, that in fact you were discussed
Oh, yeah.
quite quite frequently. Not, and I don't think quite frequently is right, but you were discussed here and there. What are we going to do with this guy? And I will admit, closing down a law firm is also a very unique experience, right? You don't just email the Secretary of State and shut off your company and just go away. It's extensive. There's malpractice, tail insurance. There's dealing with maybe an item that you had on that list. Maybe you had a claim going on. There's trailing AR to capture for God. If you let yourself
You might
forever,
actually have to reconcile that trust account finally.
right? Yikes! I couldn't wait to close the trust account. Oh my God. Oh, the 401k. Oh my God. You basically have to contact anyone that's ever participated in your 401k. That's I'm generalizing, but it is hateful. But it's Browse allowed me the time that we needed at the time to properly close the firm down respectfully, and didn't expect me to wear 10 hats at the new firm. In all seriousness, like, it's unique to close a law firm down, but I had the support of the firm to get done what I needed to get done.
When I worked at my first firm, we were a smaller firm. I think we had less than 20 attorneys. And at one point, there were talks to join in with another small firm. And that firm already had a firm administrator who had been in legal for a very long time. And the question of my redundancy came up very early on. And from what I understand, there were entire conversations about, well, who's going to run the new firm? Is it going to be this person? Is it going to be that person? And luckily we didn't end up going, but they did tell me that had it happened, I would have been the person running the firm.
Yeah.
But I'm sure they told him the exact same thing.
Oh. Rob, what do you think? Who do you think would have won out?
I don't have a comment.
Come on, an opinion. It would have been me. He knows I'm the greatest. Come
I mean, I
on.
know that, but just want to make sure. Yeah, funny that there was actually an unfilled position at Browse at the time. It was called the Director of Administration, and they had done without one for maybe a couple few years. She had gone to another firm, and they were making do. And what we realized is, and at the time it was like, do we really need this position? Do we really need this salary? Do we really need this? We've been doing without it. And what various other departments at the firm who report up to this director of administration, who were at the time were reporting up just to the director of ops, was they were getting almost, I mean, and rightfully so, they were getting almost no attention from that director level person, because there was just so much other stuff to do. So we could focus on improving HR functions. We could focus on the fact that we had, records retention. I mean, we're a 102-year-old law firm, that we have records in offsite storage that are decades and decades and decades old, that we just weren't able to focus on. And I was able to develop new procedures for our records clerk to follow. And it just allowed for one more voice at that level for everybody else. The paralegals, like we discussed, to have someone who they felt they could come to, and who would return their calls and deal with some issues. Just sort of that. And how it ended up working out was, my boss last year at the end of June retired. So it was a natural. By the way, she did an incredible job of transitioning, which speaks volumes of her over the 6 to 9 months, more like 9+ months transition into her retirement of all the operations stuff. So that didn't get lost.
So now your title is Director of Operations.
Right.
And I have been coaching you because you're going to go in and ask for Executive Director title, right?
Yep.
You're just going to throw it out there and just shoot from the hip and just make it happen.
Pew pew pew
Pew pew. Because it's a very similar role. We talked about this, right? So Rob, you and I have talked before about how titles can sometimes tell you what somebody's job is or within a law firm. And Kyle and I have almost identical operational functions, except he has a bigger firm. But other than that, it all kind of rolls over the same thing. Like you're managing HR and IT and records and facilities and all those things. And so I told him recently, just go in for the big title.
I wonder if Big Daddy is available.
Just gonna go knock on his door.
No, he wants the
I
title
would be
Big Daddy.
Big Daddy Rob.
Oh,
Oh my God, keep up.
Keep up. I caught that.
oops.
Rob,
I thought you were going in a different direction.
you've met me now at least enough to know that no, I need to be
He needs to
Big
be
Daddy.
the Big Daddy.
You need to be Big Daddy. Okay,
Can't even.
fair enough. Speaking of Big Daddy,
Ooh.
Kyle, I want to talk about the foundation for a minute. So, when we started this podcast, I went to Amanda and I said, "Hey, how can we give back to the ALA?" I wanted to see if we could do anything, and she brought up the foundation. I didn't know anything at the time about the foundation. So, could you speak for a minute about what the foundation means to you, and then also what the foundation does for others?
I could speak for many minutes about this. So let's start with why it's important to me. So the woman, the person who said to me 16 seconds into quitting my job, you need to join the ALA, is a former I think we name names on this podcast, don't we?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Wendy Rice Isaacs.
Love Wendy.
A very good friend, a very tenured former
She's kind of the
national
epitome
president.
of passion for this association.
Yeah, for this association and for her career. Not only got me to join, but many years later called me, I thought very very innocently, just sort of, hey, can I talk to you about something? She's super famous for that. And 90 minutes later, I'm still on the phone with her, and she's telling me that how important the foundation is to the ALA, and I was sold. So at the time, it was a foundation. It was a charity in flux. We kind of had to decide what we were going to do with this money we already had. Were we going to keep doing the initiatives that were already on the books? Were we going to reinvent? So fast forward, we reinvented. It is what it is today. I got to stand on stage last year, and which was a really huge professional.
You did a great job.
Highlight. Thank you so much, and tell everyone at both CLI and at the national conference why the foundation is important. And I've had more people than I can count on all of my digits say to me that they get it now. They get the foundation. They understand why it's important. The mission of educating our existing members and finding new members, not only for the association but for our field. Okay, right? Everything is changing. I mean, you can't find waiters and waitresses these days. You also can't find people who are like, I want to be a legal secretary. So we're all in this flux right now, and it's been going on in our world, I would say, Amanda, for quite some time. So
Yeah.
it's really important to me personally, and the way Wendy and the board over about a 2 to 3 year period before the pandemic really took hold, to reinvent this foundation, to making it a very succinct grouping of initiatives that people can see what we do, people can see why we do it, and people like Rob and Evan and those at Centerbase could see the importance of it. I mean, I'll never forget, Rob, you guys said, this is easy for us. This is a no-brainer when you donated to the foundation. And I'm really proud of that. And we're continuing to get a lot of interest from donations from other business partners, from other chapters.
Well, it's because we started something amazing with our new donation, and people are just
you're
falling along behind us, right?
You're absolutely right. You're
We
absolutely
jumped
right.
on, but I mean, not to toot our own horn, but that's exactly the point. Like, what you were just saying, make Rob's point, is that the foundation, it's doing a lot of great things to grow the notoriety and the importance of this profession, not just within legal and not just with existing administrators, but also helping develop this future, the administrator of the future and what that looks like. And this concept of coming in as a paralegal and not knowing what you're doing, like I think our end goal, and I don't want to speak for you, Kyle, and the whole foundation, is that, when we're ready to when we're ready to throw in the towel and be done with our career, I'd like it to be a career that other people have known and heard of, and they're
Yep.
going to go to school and that's what they're going to do. I mean, maybe that's shooting for the clouds, right? Maybe we're never going to get somebody who writes when they're third grade on a little sheet of paper, I want to be a law firm manager someday.
Yeah. Well.
But but maybe
Yeah.
you come out of college and think, okay, there's a career for me there. I can go do that. So I think that that's a lot of what the foundation is trying to do. And I think giving to it and giving back to it, Rob, both from a business partner standpoint and then also from our members, is really the future growth of this profession.
By the time this airs, it'll be more than public information that we just awarded 2 more scholarships to 2 students, one in a master's program, a master's of legal administration, and one in a paralegal role, who wants to become like a finance director at a law firm. I mean, so they are out there, and we're finding them, and we're trying to award them scholarships to build the next generation.
I can't wait.
Yep.
I was going to say, Amanda, and that's one of the reasons why we started the podcast too, right? It's an underserved community.
Mm-hmm.
It's an underserved group of people, and we wanted to help amplify it. We wanted to get the message out there, and it's been a lot of fun for both of us, I think.
Some days more fun than others.
The listeners can tell.
The long pause. What's the jab going to be? Go ahead. There you go. You got it out.
I would no jab. Some days it's just harder to tolerate you than others. Oh, Rob.
Moving right along.
Okay. So, Kyle, the very last segment we do is called Pitch Your Passion. And this is where we want you to take a few minutes. And, we did talk about the foundation a lot already. So you could talk about that or anything else that's important to you. So take it away.
I obviously am very passionate about the foundation. I would encourage anyone listening to this, you are at least somewhat, if not mostly, do you see what I did there? Interested in legal in our industry. I knew you'd get there. And so I would encourage you to go on to alanet.org foundation and read more about that. There's things on social, on email blasts, on YouTube channels, and maybe we can find a recording of me on stage last year. But so that's probably enough of that. If you don't mind, I'd like to talk about the Queer Youth Initiative at the LGBT Center in Cleveland. Pretty early on in my post-college professional career, I was working at a firm at the time. I'll say it because they have an extremely strong allyship program and support network at work. It's a firm called Voorhees. Voorhees, Sater, Seymour, and Pease, actually, in an Ohio-based firm. I think they're up to 300 or 400 attorneys at this point. I felt so comfortable there that I came out at work. Yeah, I had been coming out slowly, but yeah, and in 2000 and oh gosh, at the time it was maybe three or four, 2003, 2004. It was there, but it wasn't. It's not like it is now. I can bring my fiance to anything and not even think about it. And I wouldn't be at a firm that wouldn't be, but I digress. So this center in Cleveland is a place for any and everyone. It's extremely inclusive. I'm in fact just got a text from my dad, my 75-year-old cisgender, heterosexual, married to my mom for 52 or 3 years, dad, who told me, well, I'm going to go to my second day of volunteering at the center. He's working the front desk. He's doing like support group stuff. He's learning all this stuff so late in life because it's so important to us as a family to support this organization that provides support
I'm
to
getting a little
people.
misty-eyed.
Well, it's all the truth, and who don't do that now. I'm gonna try not to. Um, it's just so necessary, and I focus on in my volunteer time, which I haven't been able to do a ton of, but when I donate funds personally, or I say to, or I've been asked this question as board members of other organizations, what would you like us to donate to? The owners of my spin studio, with whom I'm very good friends, we do a ride every year and we donate as much money, upwards of $1,000. This Queer Youth Initiative program gives these kids some of them, one of their only outlets, period, in life at the time to be affirmed, to be safe, oh God, you're going to have to start talking. It's just really important that
Nope. Back it up.
can't do it.
Cry, I cry.
Keep going.
Come on, Rob, help me out here. Say something.
Okay, so it's an organization that gives that gives people a chance to have an outlet that they would not normally have in their regular day-to-day lives.
Yes, and it's just a place where you can go and be safe and play games and be a kid and be yourself and not worry about what other people are thinking.
So how can we help? Is it you want to give us a website?
Yeah, let's do that. It's lgbtcleveland.org.
Awesome. And we will link that in the show notes for everybody, which you can find on mostlylegalpodcast.com. Kyle, thank you so much for joining us today. We really, really appreciated your time. And I know we were a little bit all over the place, but thanks for hanging in there with us.
That sums me up. So I wouldn't want it any other way, honestly.
The fact that we stayed as on track as we all did, I feel like we deserve a reward for that.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Mostly Legal Podcast. If you like what you heard, make sure you like and subscribe so you don't miss a single episode.
You can also check us out online on mostlylegalpodcast.com, where you can sign up for our email list, get weekly recaps, and get some of your very own Mostly Legal swag.